What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, if there is any type of news that I enjoy the most, it's when ex-developers come out and speak the truth about the horrible practices of whether it's the publishers or what's going on behind the scenes. It's always the most entertaining in my personal opinion, and yes, an ex-DICE employee has come out again and has spoken their mind about the development process of Battlefield 2042. Now, of course, before we go ahead and dive deep into this topic, I do want to mention we are on the grind to 50,000 subscribers, so if you enjoy what you hear today and you want to hear more stuff about Battlefield, COD, X-Defiant, any other FPS games, don't forget to go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell notification button. And also, I will be live today over on Kick, probably around 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you guys want to tune in, check it out, and obviously hang out with the crowd, by all means, the links to all of my stuff are down in the description of this video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following content on Battlefield 2042 since the game obviously launched, you probably know of the rumors and the leaks that were going around, and obviously a lot of us content creators were spreading this news, spreading this information, and talking about it with how Battlefield 2042 went through multiple different cycles. It wasn't a Battlefield game at first. It started as a, quote-unquote BR, then turned over to an extraction, then turned over to a Battlefield game, so on and so forth. It just never had a set direction. But finally, after a long time, we have a bit more confirmation from a real developer who was working behind the scenes on this title that really confirms the overall outlook of why Battlefield 2042 wasn't good at launch, and honestly why it probably won't ever become, a well-respected overall Battlefield game. But as you can see right here, this article was written by Alex Coe saying, former DICE dev states Battlefield 2042 never stood much of a chance at being great at launch. Then a little bit further into the article, they went ahead and said, over on Twitter, former DICE senior software engineer and now Epic Games senior backend engineer. I do apologize, I'm probably going to go ahead and butcher this name, but JbowenDaMan commented that the game never stood much of a chance at being great at launch. Then going ahead and showcasing the actual tweet from this developer saying, this game had many iterations and the deadline never changed much, so never stood much chance being great at launch. I'm proud, though, to have pushed hard to have this game have full crossplay, progression, and mostly commerce. Its online systems will serve future titles well. All right, so again, just dissecting this a little bit deeper, it's just more proof to why this game is the way that it is and why I have the personal outlook over this title the way that I do. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while now, you know that, really when it comes to judging this game now, I was really hard on this game in the beginning, but at this current point, I don't expect any major changes happening to it. I just simply don't. The only thing I look at when it comes to Battlefield 2042 is to see the progress of the new developers who have jumped on board to, start making Battlefield games and see how they are improving basically individually, even though we're not individually critiquing these people. But, we get to see how they work, how they improve, how they begin to understand the atmosphere of what a Battlefield game is supposed to be. That's it. That's all I focus on, because everything else, like Joakim said, the game never stood a chance. Any title out there, it doesn't have to be an FPS game, it could be in any genre. If it doesn't know what it is right off the bat, in the foundation stage, it's not going to pan out to be anything successful. Now, yeah, there are a few exceptions, but typically, the developers have to know what they're going to go ahead and make. Yeah, story decisions and, things like that could probably change along the timeline there. But when it comes to deciding whether your game is a battle royale or a, military battlefield game or an extraction shooter, those are major game-changing differences when it comes to what an FPS game is going to be, or once again, any game is going to be. The foundation of each of those game modes is drastically different from one another. It's one of the main reasons why COD absolutely sucks nowadays. It doesn't prioritize COD anymore. It prioritizes everything. It's trying to be an everything shooter. So it struggles at making everybody happy. Every game mode almost feels like it lacks a little bit because all the attention from the developers is spread way too thin. But again, they have these things planned and they're good to go and they're set. COD is like it's insane, even though it's a cash cow and it's disgusting how they handle it. It's a well-oiled machine. They are able to pump out these games year after year after year. It's disgusting. It really is. And they don't deserve any money from doing so. But Seriously, like you see how they do it. You see how much money they make all the time, and it never fails them. It's the most insane thing I've ever witnessed. But for Battlefield, it's a different story. They weren't prepped for this, and they have never had a successful Battle Royale experience in the first place. I mean, they literally cut down the Battle Royale servers from Battlefield 5. What was it called? Firestorm or something like that? They ended all production on it. It was a complete flop mode, and they decided to kill it off. They never had a true successful BR game. And the community always tells them, focus on Battlefield, focus on Battlefield, focus on Battlefield. And they never end up doing so. That's the current problem when it comes to Battlefield. And again, this developer has just proved it to me. The reason Battlefield is struggling so much and the reason why we can't get a good game anymore is not because of, the typical Battlefield thing where, we understand the game's launch broken. Even though that shouldn't be acceptable at all. These games should launch at a good state, especially after all these years down the road. You would think that we can get a game that launches normally without having to be patched up for a year. But, at least, like Battlefield 4, for example, absolute crap, at first. It was so hard to play, but it's now known as one of the best Battlefield experiences. I'd argue Battlefield 3 is probably a little bit better, but again, that's all personal preference. The overall community always says that Battlefield 4 is the absolute GOAT, and that game started off horrible, But the foundation was never anywhere else. For Battlefield 4, the foundation was always going to be Battlefield. Yeah, they had to switch some things around, fix some things up, but at the end of the day, the game was going to pan out to be exactly what it was supposed to be. Battlefield 5 struggled. Yeah, it got better over time, but they had to completely cut out Battle Royale of the picture. And once again, they did the same thing with Battlefield 2042. Instead of learning their lesson from that, they once again started the game off as a Battle Royale, and it failed ever since. It was no hope for it. Especially with this developer saying that the deadline never changed much. So you're telling me behind the scenes, the developers had to literally change this game from the foundation up, which is very dangerous to do in the first place, but they had to do it 3 different times, basically. And you're telling me they never pushed back the deadline for them? That is nearly an impossible task. And again, it proves that this game was never going to be anything stupidly successful. And even though they can build it up and get it better, it's never going to be that game that people want it to be. At the end of the day, the lesson to be learned here is that you need to prioritize your game to be one thing and one thing only. X-Defiant's a great example of this, in my personal opinion. The game, so far, its fan base, it's either you like the game or you hate the game. But they're not trying to cater to all. It's either you want to play an arcade shooter or you don't want to play an arcade shooter. They know exactly what they want to be. They know exactly what they're pushing for. And they're going to go ahead and try to dominate that genre. Battlefield can do the same thing. They can dominate their genre. They can keep making banging Battlefield games. But the problem is, and the main reason why a lot of these Battlefield, at least the recent Battlefield games, Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 2042, in my opinion, why they turned out so bad, is because they have no identity at first. Battlefield 5 could have been such a cool experience, honestly, and I was really hoping it would pan out to be just an ultimate World War II game, where all the factions are finally aligned into the battle, and, you have all these different maps, all these different locations. Man, it could have been something really badass. But again, they had different priorities, and the same thing with Battlefield 2042, they had different priorities. If they just hyper-focus on making a good Battlefield game at launch, even if it, doesn't have a flexible deadline and they have to launch the game in a rough state, at least it'll feel like it has more passion behind it if it was, made from the ground up to be simply a Battlefield game. Because so far, I don't know, this might not be the reason, like I said, it might not be the reason why these games are flopping, the recent ones, but it seems like every game that had a Battle Royale planned ahead of time behind the scenes for Battlefield has turned out to be a very rough game. So maybe to break the cycle, we should just stop that, right? Ladies and gentlemen, do me a massive favor and go down in the comment section and leave your opinions down below. How do you feel about this information finally being confirmed up a little bit? I've always believed it since day one, but it's always nice to see an actual developer or someone with, something official behind them, backing it up and also saying the same exact thing of what happened and, why things panned out. It just confirms it to us. And what's really sickening? EA actually had the nerve to go ahead and say that this game was way ahead of schedule and was, turning out great. When the game was in multiple different, layouts with no change deadline, they thought it was turning out amazing, yeah. Oh, what a time to be a gamer, right, guys? But, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like button. If you hated it, leave a dislike. Also, for brand new, enjoy the content, subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, want to chat with me, there's a way to do so. Twitter and Discord, put the link down in the description. And also, want to catch me live streams of video games over on Twitch. Link that's in the description as well. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. See you on the next one. Peace out.